Hi guys, so Boris Johnson's former chief advisor Dominic Cummings appeared in front of a parliamentary committee where he suggested that Boris Johnson, his former boss, basically dismissed the pandemic at the very beginning and was willing to, quote unquote, get injected with the virus on live TV in order to convince the public that there was nothing to worry about. So let's hear what Dominic Cummings had to say.
In February, the Prime Minister regarded this as just a scare story. He described it as the new swine flu.
Now, how did Boris Johnson come to that conclusion? So it's important to look at the two characters here. There's Boris Johnson on one side, who's a compulsive, pathological liar. And then you have Dominic Cummings on the other side, who is his advisor. So how did Boris Johnson come to this conclusion? I'm no fan, as you know, of Boris Johnson. I'm definitely no fan of Dominic Cummings. I fear that what Dominic Cummings was doing was Dominic Cummings was convincing Boris Johnson there was nothing to worry about. And now that he's outside, looking in, he's willing to undermine the government. He's willing to throw Boris Johnson under a bus. So he was advising Boris Johnson. Now, it's also possible that Boris Johnson came to the conclusion on his own that there was nothing to worry about. But I think that's difficult to believe. But it's not beyond the realm of possibility, of course.
Did you tell him it wasn't?
Certainly.
Certainly. Now, do you believe Dominic Cummings again? Who do you believe here? Do you believe that Boris Johnson came to the conclusion on his own that it was just a new swine flu? Or do you think that Dominic Cummings convinced Boris Johnson that there was nothing to worry about? You have to remember that Dominic Cummings doesn't care about the country. Dominic Cummings doesn't care about people's lives. He's a political strategist. He understands how it's possible to manipulate the public into voting against their own interests. And he delivered Brexit in that way, convincing the public to vote a particular way, convincing the public that Brexit would be a benefit to them, when in reality it's the opposite. So Dominic Cummings is probably looking at this pandemic and saying, look, we can't invest in the NHS. We can't be seen as weak. We have to be seen as strong. And we're going to ignore, it's probably the best thing to do is ignore this pandemic. It will just let it run maybe through the population. And it will eventually die out, and there'll be nothing. We can focus on Brexit instead. I think Dominic Cummings, and he's sometimes considered a mastermind, I believe that he didn't know the damaging impact of this virus, this pandemic, and probably was telling Boris Johnson just to ignore it.
But the view of various officials inside Number 10 was, if we have the Prime Minister chairing Cobra meetings and he just tells everyone it's swine flu, don't worry about it.
So, once again, who's convincing Boris Johnson to do this? Of course, Boris Johnson can act under his own power, but he's surrounded by advisors in Number 10 telling him you should do this, you should do that.
I'm going to get Chris Whitty to inject me live on TV with coronavirus so everyone realises it's nothing to be frightened of.
Now, once again, who suggested that? Did Boris Johnson say, yes, inject me with coronavirus on TV so that we convince the public that there's nothing to worry about? Or was this something suggested to Boris Johnson? Now, I'm leaning more to the latter. I believe that, Boris Johnson surrounded himself with people handpicked by Dominic Cummings, and those people perhaps suggested, look, why don't you carry out this publicity stunt? Get Boris Johnson injected with this on live TV to convince the public back in February, convince them that there's nothing to worry about, and then we can get on with getting Brexit done. They didn't realize that this was not the case. So perhaps, and I'm no fan of Boris Johnson, but maybe Boris Johnson here is the victim.
That would not help actually serious planning.
Okay.
This would not help planning. This, of course, was not... I don't believe that Dominic Cummings cared about the planning. I think Dominic Cummings believed this was a distraction. We need to nip it in the bud, and we need to move on. A publicity stunt should be enough to do it, and then we can get back to focusing on Brexit. And I can get back to kicking, senior civil servants out of their positions and putting my people in charge. So I think it was, once again, Dominic Cummings is not the mastermind that many people think he is. I think he believed that this was a distraction. We can get round it by convincing the public once again, manipulating the public into believing that there was nothing to worry about, and then we can move on. But obviously he was wrong. And because he was kicked out of number 10, he has an axe to grind. Because he lost his power, he has an axe to grind. And he's willing to convince maybe this parliamentary committee that Boris Johnson was the one who was making all the mistakes, not his advisor. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?